Hi everybody, it's Sally here, and I'd like to welcome you to my second video series for the LK150 knitting machine. This series is going to focus on hems and edgings. Some of you might have followed my first series that I did, which, just to remind you what that was about, it was literally intended for complete beginners, starting from taking the machine out of its box, setting it up and doing all the basic functions on there. You will need mostly the casting on functions, but some increasing, decreasing to do what I'm going to do in this second series. So if you need to refresh your memory, please head back to series 1 and have a little refresher. I had a lot of very nice comments and feedback on the first series, so if you were one of those kind people that left a comment, thank you very much. So I thought I would put together this second series for you. I should point out that although I'm doing this on the LK150, these hems and edgings can be done on any machine. They're obviously aimed at machines that don't have a ribber, because you won't have your machine for very long before you'll come across this limiting factor to it, if you want to consider it as such. This machine does not have a ribbing attachment that goes with it, and once you've got past the initial phases of playing around with it, knitting squares, tension pieces, maybe a scarf or a cushion cover or something, you'll start to think about creating your first garment. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, what am I going to do about ribbing? Because probably 99% of sweaters, cardigans, jackets, and I don't know what else are likely to have ribbed edgings to them. And without the ribbing attachment, you have to come up with a strategy for doing it another way. So there's lots of options for you, and I'll be going through these. You know, important thing always with any knitting project is your preparation and planning, so I'll be talking a bit about that. And then we'll be looking at ribs, hems, straight edges and other kind of embellishments, and some other fancy edgings. Some of these videos might overrun. I find that YouTube is pretty okay about loading up long videos, but Facebook isn't. And as my videos, I usually go into both locations. If I'm going over the 30-minute mark, I might cut some of the videos short. So you might find that there's an A and a B video, or maybe even a C video, depending on how much I get through for each one of these topics. But I'll obviously mention that as I go along. Yeah, so what we'll be doing is ribs. So here's my sample board. This is a latch rib, a hand knit rib, a mock rib, and then we'll be doing hems and edgings. So you've got a picot hem, there's a latch edging, and over here there's another hem, another kind of edging, and straight edges and embellishing by knitting other little pieces first and then using them to start your knitting off. Tuck, scallop edges, you know, a roll edge, a multi-strand and maybe different coloured ewrap edge. So there's an awful lot of options for you, should you know, for you to decide what you're going to put onto the edges of all of your garments. So what you're going to need is obviously the machine. You will need your tools, your transfer tools and a latch tool, a needle pusher, and you'll need some suitable yarn in at least 2 different colours. I'll probably use this beige and blue until they run out. I'm using a UK double knit thickness, which normally knits at around stitch size 4 on your tension dial here. Depending on where you are located in the world, you may or may not find double knit weight or thickness easy to get hold of. I think it is fairly universally available these days, but if you're in the States, then you can obviously use worsted or sport weight. Worsted is slightly thicker than our double knit, and sport weight is slightly thinner. So depending on which one you're using, adjust your tensions up or down a bit. I'd say I mostly use stitch size 4 when I'm working with double knit, and I find it suits most of them pretty well. You do occasionally get one that seems to be a bit stringy and thin, in which case, you know, you knit your sample piece and see how it feels. That's the most important thing. There's no point knitting a swatch that perfectly matches your design or intended tension or gauge to discover that it's horribly floppy or so stiff you could carpet the floor with it. That's something that you definitely don't want. So yeah, arm yourself with some nice yarn. After a while, most of us collect a fairly substantial quantity of leftovers, and they make ideal yarns to use for practicing and for projects. So there's the introduction to series 2. I hope you'll knit along with me and enjoy it. I can't claim that I've invented most of these techniques on here. And if I've used another knitter or a book as a source material, I will tell you what it is and if you can still get hold of it. A lot of the older publications are freely available on a website called machineknittingetc.com. I'll just put that information up there for you. And as well as that, there's also lots of beginner help on Facebook in the Machine Knitting Beginners and Returners Circle. This is where I put most of my free materials for the machine knitters, because on Facebook I can add other documents, not just the videos. I can put in notes done on a Word document and also schematics and drawings to help you with knitting patterns. I've done quite a lot of things on the LK150 over the last few years. It's a bit of a mission of mine to show the different types of things that you can make on this machine, because if you're prepared to put a little bit of hard work into it, then you can produce some very stunning items. But that will come a bit later on. We'll talk a bit more about that as we go through. Is there anything else I need to say at this stage? Oh yeah, keep your instruction book handy. You know, I still go and look at mine from time to time when I have a senior moment and forget what things do. And some of the things I'll be going through are listed in your instruction book, so have the instruction book to hand if you have got one. If you haven't got one, you can get it from the website I showed you just a minute ago. So go and download a copy if you haven't got it. We are very apt these days not to use instruction books if we can get away with it. But, you know, read your instruction book. You're going to learn something from it, even though I don't think this is one of Silver Reed's better efforts. But there we go. That's my opinion on the matter. Now, is there anything else I need to say? I don't think so. Other than, you know, I'm hopefully going to show you that you've got a lot of choices that you can make. And, you know, what your personal choice is for each different item that you want to make is obviously going to be down to you. You know, there's no rules in machine knitting. You do what you want. You know, don't be afraid to experiment or try something different. Just because the pattern's got a rib on the bottom of it doesn't mean that you have to have one. You can do what you like. So, you know, feel free to enjoy your machine most of all. Don't be scared of it. We rather tend to think these things have a bit of a life of their own sometimes, whereas logic in our head tells us that no, they don't. It's an inanimate object. Little kids love to play and experiment, and they're not afraid of making mistakes because that's how they learn. And we tend to lose that insight as we grow into adults because we are scared of making mistakes and scared of making ourselves look silly. But, you know, don't feel that you're being silly. Every single one of us at one point learning how to machine knit has done something really silly. I've done it. I've done silly things and afterwards, oh, lordy, what on earth was I thinking? But we all do it, so don't be scared to make a mistake. But above all, you know, enjoy your machine and practice on it. The more you practice on it, like with anything else, the better you will get. You'll get to know the feel of your machine, and you'll very quickly start to sense when it's not working correctly, when it might need oiling or it might need cleaning or something, heaven forbid, has gone wrong with it. But you know, get to get familiar with your machine and come to love it. I was very ambivalent about this when I first got it. It's not the first machine I had. I had a standard gauge and a chunky gauge metal bed machine, both with ribbers. And so, but this is such an ideal one to bridge that gap between the finer yarns and the thicker yarns. And double knitting being by far and away the most popular weight of yarn in the UK knitting industry. If you go into any wool shop in this country, yarn shop, you'll find that probably, you know, a good 3/4 of what they've got on their shelves is going to be in a double knitting weight. And, you know, there are dozens and dozens of different brands and colours and fibres and all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, this machine ideally bridged that gap because my standard gauge doesn't like knitting double knit. My chunky does knit it, but of course you're then very limited because it's only got just over 100 needles. So there we go. And it's you know, a nice little machine. Right, enough of me rabbiting on. Let me sign off on the intro video, and then we'll go and talk on the next one about preparation and planning. See you on the next video.